This video will be on comparing Pso2 to other games, its base game, and of course what games to compare it to. With that out of the way, roll intro. So, why is it important to compare games in general to other games? It is important to compare other games to Pso2, for example, because in general, knowing if a game is actively trying to be malicious or deceitful towards you as a player is paramount. While I myself do not believe Sega is intentionally being malicious to us with Pso2, I can understand why people would think I am suggesting that. And I know there are a portion of the player base that would even believe that the game is actively being malicious towards us, with actions like the player shop passes, mission pass only having one player shop pass, and of course how the shop charges players for certain aspects of the game, such as the premium pass and the shop pass 30-day. But yeah, by malicious I mean the game actively trying to force players or overly encourage players to spend money to the point that players feel pressured or forced to do so. And that is the distinction that you should make when you're playing a game. But what do I compare NGS to? Well, what about JP Pso2, so the base game? Well, it is bad to actually compare to JP base game, for a few reasons at that. Prime among them is that base game released nearly a generation before NGS did. JP base game was released in a very different time for gaming. Not only that, base game is a different genre to NGS. NGS uses an open world, and base game uses a dungeon crawler system with elements of randomness. It is that randomness that makes the comparison unfair, and the format that the game uses. I'm not saying that NGS does not have randomness in its elements, however, base game relies on the randomness more so than NGS, and NGS is more static. But this randomness difference makes the comparison unfair, since one makes more active use of the randomness, whereas the other does not. However, base game JP should be used as a decent benchmark. NGS should do better than the base game at the very least. And my question is, well, does it? I don't know personally. I didn't play JP, so I don't know from experience. So I can't make the judgment based on my own experience that the JP experience was worse than the NGS one that we are experiencing currently. However, I can make judgments on it based on objective information, and my opinion is that NGS falls short even when using JP base as a benchmark. But again, I wasn't there, and this is just based on what I have read on it. Well, what about Pso2 Global then? Well, this is an even more complex consideration than JP, because Global is all the content from JP crammed into 1 year. Being objective on that, I myself do not believe that JP's content initially is worth a full 8 years. There have been other games that drop the same amount of content over 2 years, so I'll be using that as a fair metric for how much content there actually was in Global. And no, I don't mean a single player game, I mean other MMOs that drop a similar amount of content over 2 years. What I'm actually trying to say is, do I actually think that Sega can pump out global levels of content in a single year? No, not a chance. Do I think it might be possible in 2, 3, or 4? Yes, absolutely, but I digress. Is global a good comparison target? No, it most certainly is not. The amount of content we got in a base game is an unreasonable amount to expect in a 1 year period. However, and this goes for JP as well, there are things we can use as benchmark in Global, and things that are even different than in JP due to the pacing of Global that we can use as benchmark. So, how should we use these benchmarks? Using them as benchmarks, we should be able to gauge how successful Pso2 NGS is, and I think it is reasonable to think that NGS should be at least better than base game. Is Pso2 NGS better than base in social aspects? No, I don't agree. Is Pso2 better at keeping its content relevant and encouraging people to play it? No, I also don't think this is the case. Is Pso2 NGS giving players as many options to pursue when compared to base? No. You can see so many things missing from NGS when you compare it to base, and it doesn't take a Pso2 player from the early days to see that. So, if these two base games are not a good comparison target for NGS in the first place, then what should we compare it to? Well, instead of giving you comparison targets, I will explain how to get to those targets, breaking down NGS as a game and working out what categories it falls into. To start with, Pso2 NGS has a development time period of 5 years according to a quick Google search. Outside this, I can't find much information on it. So, instead of believing this figure, I'm going to say that NGS has a between 3 and 5 year development cycle. Why am I not going higher than 5 years? Comparing NGS to a game that had 6 years of dev time is likely going to be a landslide and a painful watch. If you would like to see NGS get decimated by a game that has had 6 years development time and that time has been used successfully, please let me know. Pso2 NGS falls into the genre of anime open world action RPG, meaning the game has to be compared mechanically at least to the open world action RPG part. Sega uses a gacha system and has a premium subscription model to earn money over time, and has stated it will add to NGS over time. So we need to be looking at games with a buy-in model, or gacha model, or subscription model when doing the comparisons that also have promise to continue to add to the game over time. Company presence. I really hope I don't need to explain why the fact that the company that makes Pso2 being Sega means that we can literally compare Pso2 NGS to any other game. Sega is a huge influence in the gaming world and should have the resources to make any game that they want. Otherwise, initially I was going to make my own comparisons of Pso2 to other games that I consider valid comparison targets. However, in my format, I can't do either game justice in comparison in this format. If people would be interested in listening to me compare two games in an academic sense without opinion, please let me know, and I will gladly start research for that undertaking. I wish to do games justice if I was to compare them, so let me know what games you would like me to compare. When comparing NGS to other games, you need to make sure that your comparison target is accurate before doing so. Genshin is a good comparison target, as are quite a few open world RPG style games. I'm sure you have noticed I haven't been using the acronym MMO this entire time when referring to Pso2. The reason why is I don't think that Pso2 is socially an MMO at the moment. I believe it has too much fight back for the social scene and needs to work on that. And until then, I won't consider, personally, Pso2 an MMO, but that is my opinion. Otherwise, hope you enjoyed my video. Remember to like and subscribe, and if you have any suggestions, please feel free to hit me with them. Anyhow, RSV, signing out.